everybody. I'm Kim Wilson at the Fletcher School, and today I'm here interviewing Ben Knelman, who is CEO and founder of Juntos. Ben, welcome. Would you tell us a little bit about what Juntos is?
Sure. So Juntos is a technology provider. We create automated conversation platforms that banks and mobile money providers in emerging markets use with their customers who are opening up accounts for the first time ever. What's being seen across all these different markets with very different contexts, but nonetheless facing the same challenges, which is that you have tens of millions of people that are opening up accounts, their first formal accounts, and then the vast majority of all these customers are not using them after they've opened the account. So typically 60 to 90% of all these new customers to the industry are inactive, and the accounts sit unused and empty. And so what we do is, after people have opened the accounts, we begin engaging those customers through text message conversations, two-way automated conversations. And through those conversations, we aim to help people feel more confidence and comfort using successfully the accounts once they have these new financial tools in their hands.
So it sounds good, Ben, but the reality, at least to me, it sounds a bit artificial. How are people really responding? In real life? How are the users experiencing this? Are they trusting you? Does it seem to them like you're a machine out there? What's going on?
Yeah, well, so people engage with Juntos very differently depending on individuals and context. But what we really aim to do is, even though it is an automated system, people are talking to a computer. Our goal is not to make it feel like they're necessarily talking to an individual, but for the conversations to feel warm and personalized. And we do that really by believing at our core that the answer really is never going to be inside of Juntos. The answer is always out there in the market and in our users. And so whenever we launch in a new place, the way that we approach it is we don't throw 300,000 people into our system on day one. We instead start with very small groups of customers, maybe 500 people or 1,000 people. And with all these small groups, we basically start testing lots and lots of different conversations. And through that, we can learn from the customers themselves what works and what doesn't, what they ignore and what they enjoy. And ultimately, because we're also crossing those conversations against the data that then on the back end we're getting on what's happening in the actual accounts, to see what conversations ultimately are actually empowering to people and changing behavior. And so we're able to rapidly iterate the conversations to become deeply localized and customized to what it is that particular group of people is looking for in terms of what they want to talk about and how they want to talk about their money. And as a result, we can reach conversations that are very resonant for very different groups of people around the world. And then that in turn causes big changes in people's usage of the account. So in various places, the providers have seen their active client rate increase by a third, transactionality of the accounts increasing often between 20 and multiple hundreds of percentages, and so really significant changes in how people use the accounts when you invest in the relationship with them after they've opened the accounts.
And so it sounds to me that your primary customer is the banks, and you are trying to help their customers. Can you give us an example of, I know you started in Latin America, but you've expanded well beyond Latin America. Is there an example from Latin America and, let's say, Philippines, of where you started and actually you've had to tailor the responses in a very different way?
Yeah.
Just a contrast.
Yeah, sure. So Juntos currently is under contract in 7 countries around the world: Latin America, East Africa, Southeast Asia. We're under contract for just over 1.2 million customers. So as you can imagine, within that set of people, conversations end up looking very different in different markets. We just launched in Philippines literally, I think, 2 weeks ago. So I don't have actually many stories from there to be able to share. But an example of the way that the conversations can be different. Let's look at, for example, in one of our deployments in Latin America, and one of them in Africa. So we were one of the strategies that we found that was most successful in one of the markets in Africa where we work was basically sourcing stories from that user community, right? Of basically how people were using their mobile money account to be achieving things that were important to them. And what we found was that when we would basically ask people to tell us about how they were using the accounts and what they really valued in it, and basically saying, hey, we can share some of these stories with other users of this mobile money product. So we started getting all these stories from people telling about how they used it in their life. And then we were able to take some of those stories and actually start to then basically push those back out to the wider kind of community. And so you start to have these stories of success and sort of empowerment starting to then from the community be able to be shared across that community.
It's truly continuous design and feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is embodying that. It's a truly dynamic system that you create. You start from a kernel and then it expands outward.
Yeah.
And then you scale on a institutional level.
On an institutional level.
Have you worked with competing institutions within the same country?
That we haven't actually done yet. But the way that I really look at it is in the same way that, if you have a bank or a mobile money provider that's using, Salesforce software, right? It's incredibly valuable to them. It doesn't mean though that then another is not going to use it and somehow they're only like it if they, if no one else uses it. And in the same way, I actually think that Juntos represents a new kind of category of solution that ultimately all institutions, not necessarily use Juntos, but all institutions I think actually need to have some strategy and solution for how do we engage our customers after account opening. And that's going to be something that it's not, initially it will be a differentiation, right, and a competitive advantage for those that are the most innovative and recognizing this need that they need to put in place. But eventually, I really think it's going to be something that is just universal across all providers.
Well, I certainly think you are the future because everyone's talking about how account uptake and usage. Account opening is fine. That's happening all around the world. But any kind of significant usage is very low, whether it's digital accounts or bank accounts. And I think you're going right to the heart of that problem. And it sounds like you're doing it in a very cost-effective way. Your customers, your banks must really appreciate the service.
We've been very fortunate. The partners that we've had have been great partners. And I mean, in truth, right, they are the actual innovators. They are the ones that are actually doing the hard work of providing these financial services to segments of customers that the industry has never before been able to figure out how to serve. And so what I'm really interested in is how do tools like Juntos ultimately actually kind of supercharge and enable, right, the actual innovators, which are our partners, to be able to achieve their work of financial inclusion in ways that otherwise wouldn't have been possible.
Great. And thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. And I'm sure everybody listening appreciates you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.